It is time right now for Jim Lynch and Cover Your Assets. Jim is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, sports, politics, and he comes your way every Tuesday morning, not every, 99.9% of the time on a Tuesday morning. And we welcome him in right now. Good morning, Mr. Lynch.
Good morning. Is this that young Turk, Marshall Miles?
Apparently not. It's that guy
and you, that young Jill.
No.
I want to remind all of us that age brings with us a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. And sharing that with younger people is really an incredible service. I think the whole idea is just hold a positive focus as you deal with younger people and your goals and their goals.
My mother...
I know I sent an email to my own children who are not 65 in terms of they've got a lot of time constraints, but I've suggested to them in this time that they do whatever they can in participating in the political process, be it part-time mailing or part-time phones or just holding a focus for what's better for the country.
But first,
participate in life. My mother had a sign hanging up in her kitchen, and it was a great sign. And I used to resent it when I was younger, but and it was a sign. It was framed and everything, and it said right when you walked in the house, you saw a door that said hello, welcome. But right above that, you looked at a sign that said, "I am not young enough to know everything."
Amen.
But that's very
Beautiful.
true. But
Beautiful.
What has happened, sadly, is so many people have drunk the screen Kool-Aid, and just it's like the level of apathy, and we've known this for years, starting with TV and people watching too much TV. So to transfer it to a screen, and then to make the screen just an absolutely integral part of. You line up 10 people, and I will show you 9.4 people who can't take a step without their screen. That is now pretty much implanted in their brain. And now you're saying, which you need to say, but it's like, yo, wake up. You got to go participate out there. Half of them don't even know how. They don't know how. They don't know how anymore.
Well, I concur. I think we should try and help by sharing our own experiences of when we've had time to think and not be moved by a screen. I think, however, there's a certain value to the Internet which we should appreciate and take everything and balance it in your life. In terms of what we have about us as a country, Instagram, Taylor Swift, a great young singer with 122 million followers, posted. She's from Tennessee. First time she's ever come out for politicians. Both of them are Democrats because Marshall Blackburn, the Republican, is against women. Watch this, folks. Vote.org reported 65,000 new voter registrations in one day. The average new registrations for the month of August was 55,000. So there is a power here. Now, this lady says vote for this one or vote for that one. That's fine. The key is she is serving us all using the Internet to get out the vote. And that said, if you look at what happened after the recent voting for the Supreme Court justice, and the lady in Maine said, well, she was voting yes, $3 million was contributed to a campaign against her, which doesn't even start until 2020. So the point is we need to get the news. What we need to do is figure out, one, that it's accurate news, two, that it's of import to develop our own mind in putting some additional facts to it. So there is a benefit there. Let me continue. We've got a lot to cover here this morning. Let's talk economics for a second. And it goes something like this. For several years now, particularly the last, I have been telling people who own U.S. government bonds to sell 5-year government bonds because I anticipated that yields would be much higher. Well, indeed, within the year, the 5-year and 10-year U.S. government bonds are up 100 basis points, which is a lot of moolah if you went to sell them. We've also been talking that interest rates are one of their keys to a stock market, good market, bad market, whatever. It's not just that interest rates are going higher that is influencing the stock market and stock markets. It's the fact that we are starting at such a low base of rates. The 10-year is about a 3.25. If you look 5 years, if you look over 15 and 20-year basis, they were 5 to 6%. That is a huge difference, and the impact will be very dramatic if we get back to those levels on our economy and on the world's economy. The world now is awash with trillions of dollars of debt that we didn't have before. Our own country is setting records every day for the amount of debt outstanding. As confidence slackens, and it's been slackening in terms of people feeling comfortable with where the world's going, you will see rates going higher to discount some of the problems ahead. Along those lines, the International Monetary Fund is cutting its forecast for global growth for both trade here and abroad. And the reason they're doing that is we have complicated our economic situation. We, the U.S., has done this by creating tariffs and sanctions, thereby creating uncertainty in terms of the economy and actually hurting our own citizens. On these tariffs on goods from anywhere where there's a tariff that the U.S. has put on the goods, let's call it China, we as consumers are going to pay more money for goods. We pay the tariffs. The Chinese don't pay them. The U.S. government doesn't pay them. And as a matter of fact, the U.S. government collects the tariffs. So your costs generally will probably go up because of tariffs. It's already hitting smaller companies who have been relying on Chinese, particularly goods, to make their products. And it's impacting the general uncertainty of the entire world economy. Time to be cautious. We had suggested by only short governments, for instance. That's in the 1 to 4 year range. We maintain that position. We've been cautious on the stock market because of interest rates and also, frankly, because of our own government, which is in disarray. We do not have leadership. If you're going to buy a corporation that makes widgets, you certainly want the head of the corporation to be positive, to be creating allies and customers. We have the leader of this ship, who is basically criticizing our allies, sanctioning both allies and enemies, and giving us such a confusing model that we don't know which side is up. Now to the one last thing on tariffs. Lindsey Graham, who's developed a very big megaphone lately, has been siding with Trump, as he does on many things nowadays, on tariffs. Yet, there are articles that show clearly Lindsey Graham, talking out of both sides of his mouth, is writing to Congress for getting exemptions for certain corporations in South Carolina. This is not unusual. Congressmen do that. But what are we doing? We're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we're just hurting the consumers in the process. We have had a very major situation in terms of the vote for the Supreme Court justice. It didn't have to go that way, but it went that way. We're in disarray, and what has come fast forward is the fact that the President of the United States is basically anti-women. We saw that in the Access Hollywood tape a year or so ago, where he basically said he had sexually abused women because he could in his position. He has tripled down by saying to us citizens that, it's scary time for our boys, uncles, fathers, and so forth. Hey, how about women, which make up 52% of the population? Well, obviously, he doesn't give a damn about women. Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee doesn't give a damn about women. Or Catch, as the Senate, never given a damn about women. Grassley. And now we have the senator from Maine stepping over. We have seen a sham, ladies and gentlemen. The sham was the FBI investigation. Trump is the biggest con man we've seen, I guess, in our lifetime. He continues to con. He continues to lie to people with over 5,000 lies. Little wonder that he suggested Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is a liar. He lied during the Senate confirmation. Trump is a sexual harasser, an abuser of women. He has not vetted this man properly, and he's put him on the Supreme Court.
Now, Jim,
much like the Senate put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court 24 years ago.
Jim, I have to step in here, and I'm gonna go back to a statement that was made by President Barack Obama before the election, in the last weeks of the election, and it was to voters who obviously didn't listen, and that is elections have consequences. And one of the consequences everybody knew, one of the major things that Bernie Sanders ran on, and I'll remind you this, what do you remember what the first two planks in Bernie Sanders' platform were?
I don't exactly know. Go ahead.
One, to repeal that corporations can be looked at as individuals, a Supreme Court ruling. Number two, that the next president was not only going to have the slot that they Republicans were denying President Obama to fill, but probably another slot. Those were two of the major things that Bernie Sanders talked about.
And it was really important here because, and I'm weighing in, and this is because everyone knows that Marshall is a big Bernie supporter. The important thing is the elections have consequences. What the media covers is what the media wants to cover. It's a much, much broader, there are many broader issues that need to be addressed than the ones that are focused on. And if you had brain cells and if you focused on it, then you should have realized how many Supreme Court justices potentially were going to be, retiring or being replaced, and going back to elections have consequences. And
okay, mm-hmm.
No, that's all I want to say. Marshall's going to
okay.
continue.
Well, let's remember, 63 million, I believe, voted for a person, Hillary Clinton, who would have taken care of those things. It's only the Electoral College that prevented her from winning.
No,
it was also
I won't blame it on
the Russians screwing around with our elections. And I blame Obama for a series of mistakes that he made, which as a commander-in-chief he shouldn't have made. One, when he went to Mitch McConnell, when we were discovering that the Russians were hacking in, he asked McConnell to go with him and side and tell the American public. He didn't have the guts as the chief executive to do it on his own. It was his responsibility to have a big megaphone telling us that we have this problem. Net result, the problem continued. The Russians saw we were weak in this area, and they continued to do it. The other Obama mistake which was made was when he just gave up on getting his guy before the Senate, rather than going before the public and demanding day in and day out that McConnell vote this guy. He kowtowed to him, as he did kowtow to Trump by allowing Trump for several years, and when we as a populace kowtowed to Trump, allowing him to get away with this birther thing, and he was never called up on it. So it's not only elections that have consequence, it's the people in the government who create situations or do not create situations that safeguard our democracy.
If Jim, and it all comes down to this, I agree with a lot of what you say, but it all comes down to the fact there were, I think it was 8,000 votes in 3 states would have changed the election. And there were people in those states that sat on their hands and didn't vote.
And part of the reason that they didn't, with all due respect, is they were absolutely livid about what happened with Bernie Sanders. So, it's just the assumption that
I just don't think, and I was livid, and I was livid about what happened to Bernie Sanders, but I just don't think that the media or Hillary Clinton or the Democratic Party or the Democratic candidates focused enough on some of the major things that would happen, like the end of Obamacare, which gave me health care for 5 valuable years when I needed it. I don't think the media focused on the fact that it's not 1 but 2 of the Supreme Court.
Of course not,
minimum.
Because that's boring.
Those things they followed the candidates weirdly, and if you look back, and to this day, Bernie Sanders draws thousands of people wherever he goes.
And do you see him in the paper?
I see.
You do,
but all I'm saying is, the good thing here, Jim, that I see with Bernie Sanders going out and about, and a few of the other Democratic candidates, even though Bernie's not a Democrat, is those people that are in the crowds are not just Democrats. They're independents, they're men and they're women, and they're not just millennials. They're people that are just slightly younger, first entering the voting force. That's what we need to change what's on the table right now.
No question about it. The key is gear up right now, this moment, this second. Figure out what you want from a candidate. Figure out who your candidate should be. Make sure you are prepared in an orderly way to get to the election booth. Make sure you talk to your voting age children, your relatives, your friends, to go vote. Don't entangle yourself in my candidate, your candidate. Let's just vote as a nation and decide which way we want to go, which is probably the way I think we all agree that is best for all of us. Unfortunately, the newspapers, they are in the business of making money. Trump gave him a great service by creating a lot of fodder, and they've made all kinds of money.
Here comes
they do need to be more circumspect as the fourth estate in terms of what's important.
It's not only newspapers. A report came out this morning, Jim, that MSNBC now is the second-ranked news network, and CNN is the third-ranked news network, and they're ranked right behind who? The Fox News Network. Those 3 news networks have taken advantage of this political situation, and they've made millions and millions of dollars on it.
And I always mention the same thing, which is the same ads. All you have to do is turn on any one of those 3, and you get the same ads for the same cars and the same drugs.
The same everything.
And the same everything.
But it's amazing.
Okay, so now the thing is, what is important to the voter? It's what means things to people personally, their health care, education, for kids. We are falling so far behind in terms of the economy. We are not creating educational opportunities to teach our young people what to do and where to go in the newly burgeoning economy. The fact that the people in West Virginia, when they voted for president, allowed themselves to say, oh, we want to bring the coal mines back. And someone's telling us the coal mines are coming back. The coal mines were over. People in Appalachia was dying before their very eyes, but they wanted to believe this because they were looking to get back. They were looking to say, I'm going to stamp my feet. And in stamping their feet, they didn't care about themselves. So if you care about yourselves, if you care about an education for your kids, decent economic opportunities, healthcare, all things that do line up with Marshall's friend, Bernie Sanders, then you know who to vote for. Well, you don't vote for Marshall Blackburn of Tennessee, who's against women.
Here's the thing, Jim, and we only have a couple minutes left. I hate to chime in like this, but remember when Bernie Sanders was running, calling for $15 an hour, calling for free state college education, calling for universal health care. Guess what? More and more businesses now are doing the $15 wage. Okay, more and more states are allowing their students, like New York State, free tuition to state universities. And, by the way, the tide has turned where a majority of Americans feel that a single-payer healthcare system is the way to go. And at the time when Bernie Sanders was running, those were considered negatives. Well, guess what? They're positives now. It's time for people to get out there, and if they really believe, they've got to start working. And like I said all along, Donald Trump is doing campaign rallies right now. Bernie Sanders and whatever Democrat they want, they should declare their presidency right now, and they should start their campaigns right now. That's what they should do to motivate and get Americans going. Start your presidential campaigns now, because President Trump has already started.
I concur exactly with what you're saying. My hope would be they start right now and they have a conference, sit down in private, and decide who are the top 3 Democrats to run. If we have 15 Democrats up there on the podium, we're just weakening the message. It's taking precious time. We should start now, but start with just a few people. And we've already seen a few of them out there. We have to get somebody who is intelligent, who can talk, and takes no prisoners. Trump is so vulnerable. As we end with, he owes $500 million, his family, to New York State for the tax scams he's been doing. Now, you people who voted for him, how does it feel to know that you've paid your taxes and this guy's family owes $500 million?
Right.
Take that to the voting booth.
All right, we're out of time, Jim.
Okay, I'll end with this for you guys. New York Jets, thrilling, absolutely thrilling. Giants, too bad. Congratulations, Drew Brees, passing the record for yards in football. Okay,
all right,
lots
Jim.
of love to everybody. Let's go and vote.
All right.
See you. Have a great week. Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Jim Lynch, and Cover Your Assets here on Robert Hood Radio. And I remind you, not only the comments of Jim Lynch, but Jill Goodman and myself are all our own comments and don't represent the underwriters, the volunteers, and the supporters of Robert Hood Radio, CATV 6, CATV 252, or Tri-State Public Communications.